Hello and welcome everybody to I Have a Question, Volume 8. Today we're going to talk about platforms and places to put your courses online. My name is Dave Cormier and I'm swinging in my hammock here in Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island.
My name's Jennifer Madrigal and I'm at Pine Country Campground in Belvedere, Illinois. Let me prove it to you before we go. See? There we go.
Brats on the fire.
There we go. This is John Schinker, and I'm on my back porch in Stowe, Ohio.
And this is Jeff Lebo in my room in Busan, Korea, getting ready for work.
Getting ready for work.
Being bummed out by all this leisure.
We do start of summer, Jeff. Come on.
Yeah.
Oh,
anyway, we're here to answer questions or ask questions, and our question is, what's the best home base for your course online?
It's a tough one. It's one I'm fighting over right now, you know. And really, when you're working online, how much do you even have a home base? It's a tough kind of question. And I think it's one that we always kind of revisit. If you're inside of an institution, you might answer that question one way. If you're working as a contractor, you might answer it a different way. Or if you're doing, you know, crazy open course stuff, maybe it's something different again. So who wants to start? Who has a favorite?
Well, I have a question for you, Dave.
You have a question for the question?
Yes, a question for the question. I would like you to give us a quick recap. I know you've had great success with Facebook, and I wondered why you think that is. Is that just the nature of the folks that you have in that particular class you're teaching or affiliated with, whatever?
I'll open by saying that I hate myself for liking Facebook as a platform. I really do, and I am embarrassed by it, but the fact is that it seems to work. I think that there are the most important reason Facebook works is that people are there anyway. The people who come to join the Facebook community and they're looking at baby pictures of their friends, or on my case, checking out what happened at CrossFit today, or whatever. There's a lot of people in Facebook, and it does notifications very, very well. So if you don't do something foolish like I did the first time, which is use a Facebook page, and you actually choose a Facebook group, which is the correct answer to the question, then it does an extremely good job of doing notifications. And notifications are everything in an open course.
Yeah.
It also does a reasonable job of threading conversations. Now, people will gripe at it because it doesn't allow you to do complex threading and the rest of that stuff. But complex threading is only really important if what you're trying to do is get all of the content. What Facebook essentially does is it creates a mini Twitter stream. So what it does is if you've got a question, like I pop one in there today talking about platform in the RISO 14 Facebook group, it holds all the things about that conversation in one row. You may get 60 or 70 comments, you may look at 20, but it at least holds that conversation together in a pretty reasonable way. So in terms of saying the notification is definitely number one, and then after that, it does a fair to reasonable job of holding together the conversation. But most importantly, because almost everybody comes in via notification, it doesn't matter how it's designed, because you end up starting at the place you need to be, right? And that's sort of the keystone for it, whereas with everything else that I've used, it requires a lot more cognitive load to actually get to the conversation. So if you want to find out what happened on Twitter, you've got to hit the hashtag and scroll through and try to figure it out. If you want to, you know, find out what's going on Google+, you can scroll through it in that way. But the Facebook thing, the direct ping notification, totally clears that up.
Well, I would say that as far as notification, that also works for Google+ communities. And I begrudgingly somewhat agree with the fact that just Facebook works because people are there. But the functionality that Google+ communities have is not only the threaded conversation, but also the categorization. So if I want to see just the conversations on course development in RISO 14, or I would have that option in a Google+ community, whereas I wouldn't in Facebook.
And you're talking about options like they're good, Jeff. And what I'm suggesting is the extra cognitive load actually hurts you. It's fine if you're the sort of person who likes things organized, but if you're going to have a random sort of drop-in conversation, there's more cognitive load involved in dealing with Google+. There's just more things to think about, whereas Facebook washes all that away.
You're pleased with Rhizo 14. Would you also use this for a course you're teaching to because Rhizo 14 people are generally engaged digitally and free, open thinking, hippie cyber people. What about the newbies that you teach elsewhere?
I don't use Facebook there because the resistance to Facebook is stronger in the general population, and I don't want to have to deal with the identity shock to working on Facebook. If I had a longer time in that course, I would definitely use it, and God knows it would be easier to use than Twitter is. And frankly, if I thought I had anything to teach them about using Facebook, I would, but as they already know how, I don't see the sense. So if I needed them to find each other, then totally I would. But I don't think there's enough people there for it to get as confusing as it does when there are several hundred. So with Twitter, it's all they can do for the first couple of weeks to find each other at all. Google Plus has blown up on me every time I've tried to do it with those students. And frankly, everything else I've tried in a short period of time ends up being too difficult unless I'm very, very prescriptive. And the whole goal of the kind of teaching I do is to not be prescriptive, to allow people to teach themselves. It's not to say they couldn't teach themselves, they really, really, really wanted to. But because there's so much other complexity in the course, it's too much.
So I guess the question then becomes, if you're starting, like Jeff, to kind of go down the path of what Jeff was saying, if you're starting out a new class, really, or experience, whatever it is, and you don't know where people are, like it sounds like you're the kind of the newbies that you might have had this past time, you wouldn't want to teach them how to use Facebook in order to use Facebook. So where would you go? What would you do?
I like WordPress for that, actually. It's a single page, single stream, which is good. It seems to be pretty easy to teach people to post. It also has a little bit more ownership feel than Facebook does. I think that they feel a little bit more like they're doing something new, even though the process is very similar.
So you're saying you would have them make blog posts versus setting up some type of plugin that's a discussion forum?
Oh, totally, yep. Absolutely.
So then you kind of lose, though, that threadedness of a... Do you get enough people to comment? Because typically you see a blog post being like...
You can do threaded discussions, though, in a blog post.
But don't they tend to usually be like a broadcast, and then if people get around to it, maybe, yeah, I agree, or, I usually see that versus what you'd see in a threaded discussion. But no?
Yeah, I guess in the sense that you would have a prompt, which is a post, which would be the substantive part of the conversation, and then people commenting on that, as opposed to a forum post where you might have a question or an observation and the bulk of the content comes in the comments. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Perhaps.
Well, yeah. Yeah, and then again, I guess it is the other question about with starting a WordPress, which kind of ties into some of the other stuff you see, like Jim Groom and others advocating, is everybody bringing their own domain.
Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So is that more an issue of can your group handle it, or is that something that's worthwhile to teach people to handle?
I mean, again, I think it depends on who you're dealing with. I have a particular group that I have and particular goals that I have for that course, and they involve anytime I get to the point where I have to be particularly prescriptive in order to get something done, I tend to shy away from it. Domain of one's own is one of those things where in order to get somebody there, there's a fair amount of you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. And it's the same way I feel about discussion forums, right? I think discussion forums in certain contexts can be really, really good, although I do find that for at least half of the class, and unfortunately it's the half that really needs it, I can't get them to participate well in a discussion forum without being very prescriptive about how much they should post and how they're going to post. Whereas when somebody's writing a blog post and you're going to comment, I find that the comments end up being much more personalized and about that post. So it's always that combination.
So they're not filling quotas and saying, oh, I've got to post 4 comments tonight, so I need to find something to say about this post. It's more along the lines of, I'm reading this and I have a reaction to it, and so it becomes more natural. Do you think that, going back to Facebook, that having the course intermingled with their social network is helpful in that regard, or does it do you think it makes any difference?
Only in the notification sense.
So, like having, here's someone's posting vacation photos, and here's somebody talking about what their kid did this week, and vacation that they're going on, or whatever's coming up, and then, here's this discussion on Rise 14, and they can engage in all of that at the same time in the same place. Does it matter that it's in the same place? Have you had any comments about that?
Pushback?
Well, there are times when I want to do, I want internet candy, and that's when I go to Facebook. And there are times when I want to engage in a serious way with content online, and I typically stay away from Facebook when I want to do that. And so, I wonder if that's a general thing, or that if it's more advantageous to have everything in one place and not have to go off to some course site to, do serious thinking.
I had a curmudgeon who joined the Facebook group today, actually.
John wanted to join?
And complained in the middle of his post
that he did not want to join.
That he did not want to have to come to Facebook to engage in the conversation, but as he was interested in the conversation, he was forced to come.
No,
one complaint.
You misunderstood that. I didn't want to have to register for the course to post a comment. It was already in my Facebook, polluting my stream as it is because I'm friends with Dave. So I just wanted to comment, and then in order to comment, I had to join the group, and in order to join the group, I had to be approved, and I thought, well, this is not very rhizomatic, and then so submitted the request, and then my request wasn't approved, so I still couldn't join, and so I gave up on it, and then 5 minutes later realized I was allowed in and could post a comment and stir up trouble.
So once again, you had to join a group by apologizing? Was that your first post?
I tried to kill it first.
I'm sorry for trying to kill your group. I'm sorry.
So maybe moving away from Dave as central here, Jeffy, you've been running online courses over there all over the world. What do you like to do with platforms?
For a blended course that's mostly face-to-face, but I want some online component, or for my online courses, I generally use Blogger. And there's a lot of similar advantages to, as WordPress. Blogger is less robust than WordPress, but I like to tap into the Google universe, and so I make sure everyone has a Gmail address, and for some courses they also have to have their own blog, and so on Blogger I've got the blog roll of all their blogs, and we keep hearing negative things about Google+, but I also like the fact that if people want to share something, they also create a circle for their group or their class, and so if they want to share something, class photos or whatever, but they don't want them public, but they just want to share them with their group, Google+ enables that. So I've got in my primary Gmail account, a couple dozen courses. Some stuff I create a new blog for every semester. Others I just maintain and update as necessary. I like having a simple URL to tell people, okay, go to buffcng317.blogspot.com. And I like having even a subdomain to point people to. I like to include Diigo. It's not a home base, but for certain courses, especially where they're out there doing stuff, I like Diigo, again, because it allows them to... One of the criteria that I think of is I want people to own their own content. And so when the course is done, I want them to be able to not only have access to their stuff, but also be able to keep it going. And so Blogger certainly supports that. And some, most don't, but some do keep it going after. Whereas if it lives, all their stuff lives in a Facebook group, they would have to start their own group to kind of get going. Yeah, I mean, just to echo the Facebook thing, like if I wanted to go to the Rise 14 group, I have to log into Facebook. And I guess that's, whereas if you use a WordPress or a Blogger, it's more open and you don't have to log into anything to access it. I'm done.
Yeah, and something we haven't talked about too is like where do you store created artifacts? Like if students are working on something collaboratively, that's what I ran into mine is we used Google folders, and that's where everybody stored all their stuff so they could use Google Docs and things. So we had a lot of moving parts then because that really doesn't have a lot of communication features, and so then we had to figure out how to handle that. We tried Google Plus Community, wasn't so great. Tried using the old-fashioned Google Groups, this threaded discussion. That was really a disaster.
I
And then I
hate
had
Google
just,
Groups. Oh my God, I hate it.
I know. And then we had just a home, like a Google, lovely Google Sites. But again, to Jeff's point, trying to keep everybody all in one universe if possible. But that I think I went to too great a length to try to do that, and it wasn't necessary. I think wherever you have your home base, when I say home base, I mean this is where updates will be as far as major announcements, readings that have to be done, deliverable dates.
If you're
types of
absent,
things.
go here and do what you missed.
Exactly. If you're
Right.
lost and have no idea where people are talking or whatever, go to this place.
And that could just be pointers to other things, right? I mean,
Yep.
go find somewhere. You're working as a group of 4. Go find somewhere to put your stuff, and just let us know
Right.
where it is. But I think we're talking about courses that transcend any particular institution. Getting back to if you're working at a school that is using an LMS and all of the students taking the course are students at that institution, you're probably going to be in the LMS, right? I mean, are we talking about putting things elsewhere because it's a better place to be, or just trying to be open and accessible to as many different methodologies as possible?
Yeah, well, one of the in the teaches I coursed. The courses
Oh,
I
the
taught
teachers I course.
the teaches I coursed. This past semester, there are 2 of them. We didn't use the discussion forums. We used, again, Google folders and Google Docs. I'm trying to think what else we used outside of that. Again, it was the home base. It's where I put my announcements every week to say, remember your assignments are due or readings are due, and I kind of used it as a home base, but then really all of our collaboration happened outside the LMS.
That's
It
kind of
could
neat.
just be a function of the limitation of the LMS, but go
Well,
ahead.
but when you do it that way, you have the structure of the course and you have the home base that they're used to. So if they're taking all of their courses in Blackboard, you're going to Blackboard, and you see the links there to other resources that are outside the LMS. And then when they leave the course, they still have access to those other resources, even though they lose access to the course on Blackboard or whatever your LMS is. So
Yeah.
it's really an advantage. You're staying standardized within the institution, but you're using other things.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah,
Do we
it's
want
kind
to
of
talk about LMSs? Do we have any favorites or new
They're all
kids on the
the
block that we
same,
like?
aren't
Well, I mean, it depends on what you're trying to get done, right? So I use an LMS. I will use it more for like meeting notes than I will use it for actually teaching classes because it does a really good job of handling logins, right? So something like Moodle doesn't. It's a really, really easy way of creating a private space online where you can do a number of things. So when other people say, "Oh, we want to do this thing," I go, "Why don't you just create a Moodle course?" Because it will allow you to have the login, give you a place to put your stuff, and it will track the things that people are doing. But I mean, it is very much, and I'm certainly not the first person to say this, it is very much a management system. It's very well designed for checking on what people are doing. So if you're teaching a course that is like a basic skills course where you need to get people from 0 to 1, it can be a really effective thing to do, right? Particularly at scale. Whereas if what you're trying to do is actually have people learn, or at least what I call learning, I don't think it's as effective. I mean, you can do learning anywhere. You give a great teacher a stick and a sandbox, and they'll teach people. But I think that overall, I find something like an LMS too prescriptive, and too dictatorial for my tastes.
You know what's funny is we're all on this call, I think, pretty big of throwing people a lot of moving parts in their learning experience, and I sort of think the more you can strip, what you were saying, Dave, your way you phrase it, the cognitive load, when you kind of, for the interface, I think that's maybe not the place to throw, especially on newbie learners, newbie learners, that's maybe not the place to try to trick them up, because then they'll get lost and truly have no idea even where we are and where the conversations are happening, and then you lose the group pretty quickly. Which is, I know a lot of people have success using Twitter, and I know you did it to some degree in your last class. But did everybody participate? I tried to follow along a little bit. Was it mainly the self-starters that used Twitter of your newbies, Dave?
Oh, do you mean in my face-to-face course?
Your real class. Yeah, your real class.
My real class.
Real
Yeah, no.
Your real class.
The real class. No, as is often the case for me in that class, the people who end up using it end up being very surprising. So the people who, and it's funny in the reflections that starts to come out, right? Well, they'll say, I always thought I would hate Twitter, and yet one guy started doing advertising for his brother's oyster business because he realized it was a really great way of finding resources for that and sharing them with people. And he's like, oh my God, this is exactly what I was looking for. I would have been the last guy I would have expected. And I think that there are people for whom that kind of sharing will never be for them. And what I tell them in the course is, I want to see you like get help and give help online. And as long as that happens, you'll get your Twitter grades. I don't care how much you do it, as long as it's clear that each week you've made some kind of effort there.
Yeah. So Jeff, do you use an NLMS in your online class? Are yours online, Jeff, or are they face-to-face that you just have a lot of
I have primarily face-to-face with online interaction. I am teaching one online course currently that's all online, and Blogger is the home base for that. I have a former trainee who is running a LUC, a Little Open online course. He does a lot of this. He's a middle school teacher who's become sort of a consultant for smart technology in Busan, and he's using Eliatomy, and he's also played around with Schoolology. And like, I'm wondering. We tend to think LMS is okay, Blackboard or Moodle, but there's all these other things that have come up. Anything come across your radar that says, oh, that's...
My students always seem to like Edmodo.
Yeah.
So every year I get one student who does a presentation on Edmodo, and everybody kind of looks at it and go, again, this goes back to what Jen was saying about cognitive load and LMSs. Edmodo tones it down a little bit. It just pares down the features just a little bit, so that when you look at it, it becomes clear where you should be looking, what you should be getting out of it. And they seem to consistently be doing a pretty good job.
Schoology is popular here. Canvas is popular but expensive. It's hard to get. What we're struggling with in my school is to get some consensus. Everybody kind of agrees that we're sick of Moodle at this point, just because it seems to have lost its direction, that it's so customizable that it's overwhelming for our teachers. It's, there are 15 different ways to get kids enrolled, and we just want to get them, we need to move forward, and the technology's getting in the way for them. And I think they want to do more with assessments, and finding an LMS that does assessments really well is pretty difficult. In Moodle, for example, they'll create quizzes and have 30 kids taking a quiz at the same time, and the way the code is written, it takes the server down because it can't handle that kind of load. So we're looking around for LMSs and playing with different things, but yeah, Schoology, Edmodo are both very popular.
Yeah, I think Moodle's going to get into trouble if they don't fix that.
Yeah, there are some concerns that I have with Moodle and I've been running it for 8 or 9 years now, and the further we get into this, the more difficult it becomes, which is kind of odd. Hey, I don't know if you guys noticed Peggy's in the chat and asking all kinds of questions. Jeff, if you wanted to go back to Blogger, she was asking about, would Blogger be a good choice if you weren't with adult learners? And then she has some questions there for Jen too.
No, I mean, Blogger for me, it's easy. I would consider WordPress as well, although if I'm forcing everyone to have a Gmail address, that kind of helps with...
It's already there. Yeah.
I wish they would just stop changing the interface.
You keep re-recording videos, Jeff?
Yes, and keep updating my screenshots.
Google is like that across the board.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to answer Peggy's question, we didn't use Blackboard in the service learning projects. That's why we were using all the Google. I was attempting to use all things Google for that. For one thing, it's free, and that's something we kind of talked to Jeff or John mentioned, Canvas is really expensive. I had an early conversation with them asking, is there anything you can do for us? We're a bunch of volunteers working for a nonprofit. And I was really like, not really, no, not so much. They really didn't have anything to offer us, so that conversation ended pretty quickly. And I think, I don't know if I'd want to lock in an experience like that within an NLMS, because well, at least part of my goal, I don't know if it was achieved. Well, Jeff, you found us, I guess, on a webcast, is I wanted to not just be the service learners and the nonprofit. I was hoping to get some people outside the immediate project to contribute as best they could. So
because you social media'd it. I mean, I think I saw some Google Plus announcement or a tweet or something.
Yeah, my big tweets, one after another.
I think the other piece, and I see time winding down, we haven't really talked about, is the whole edX end of the spectrum.
Yeah, we
where
have to
you've
talk
got
about that,
this sort of big data crunching reasons for having a home for your course. Having spent some time doing that for a couple months this year, it feels like it's almost like living inside of the Wizard of Oz. And you go see the wizard, and you look behind, you're like, shit, there's nothing back here. But at the same time, when you think about the possibilities there, some of it's pretty incredible, right? Again, especially for that basic learning stuff, when you can throw like serious bits of code in there, and particularly if the OER sharing thing ever worked, which in my mind it still hasn't yet, but if you could have small groups of people in different places working on really, really excellent bits of assessment, to go to John's point, you could have some really incredible tools out there, and you could put them into something like edX, which could be a self-service place like the Khan Academy, except it would be more formative in its approaches. And I've seen some of the stuff it's pretty crazy stuff.
So Dave, you were saying you said in a back channel earlier this week, not particularly impressed with edX. So how would you compare it to like P2PU in terms of what you were trying to do?
Oh wow, I can't imagine two things more different. P2PU,
really? See, I don't know.
P2PU is a website. Like all it does is it sends out a mailing newsletter, and frankly, a lot of them went into people's spam boxes, so that wasn't even configured in a really great way. P2PU is like hit edit, put text in, hit save. That's all it does. So for me, it turned out to be great because I had a little comment section, and I could mail stuff out to people, and it was fine. Most people are going to want more functionality than that. edX is like, Iron Man, the from the song, the big metal. Yeah, it's like it's this code colossus that has like insane power to put like fizzlet JavaScript things in it. But you can't do things like click on a person's name and find out what they've done. There are no profiles in it. No humans. No for the human. Right? So it's totally meant to have one person doing it themselves and not meant to have a faculty or a teacher or anybody look at what's going on. It's only meant to be looked at the 10,000-foot view. There's no way to intervene in a person's learning experience. It's not designed to do that.
Is there any way? I poked around a little bit, and I know they're launching this something over the summer, maybe even in June, where you can install edX, yourself or whatever. But I don't think you can really see the feature set right now that I've found on any website. I think you have to have played with it to know this. But is there a website
if
that
what
anybody
you
else
want
is
to
aware of?
do, if what you want to do is have a series of learning, of mastery learning approach things, edX is great. If you want to go do step 1, then step 2, then step 3, then step 4, then step 5, and when you're done that, go to the next one, step 1, step 2. If that's what you want to do, edX is great. Anything else, forget it. It just doesn't do it. Now the detail in those steps is great if what you want to do is mastery learning.
I don't have because where I'm configured here, I don't have my Diigo at my fingertips, but George linked something this week from, looks like the folks behind Sakai are working on something behind the scenes, rumored.
I don't know.
Speaking of Diigo, our EdTech group had quite the busy week this week. And we also got a couple tweets from Terry Elliott. Thank you for using the IHAQ tag. And yeah, we had.
Hi, Terry. All right, guys. Any last comments that anybody wants to make? We've hit the half-an-hour mark here. Jen's stuck at the fire. Yeah, her smoke isn't moving anymore.
No.
Yeah. Take us out, Davey.
Well, Jeff, you had something you want to say?
Yeah, we usually try to find a question for next week, or at least address that. And I got nothing.
So, question to be determined.
Okay.
Take us out, Jeff.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, Peggy. Always appreciate you showing up.
Yeah, and Jen saying her phone died, so.
We'll be back here next week from wherever we are. Tag your questions, IHAQ, IHAQ, and we'll look forward to continuing next time.